Hi, and welcome back to Hill and Ponton's Veterans Disability Blog. I'm Natalia Jofre, the company COO.
And I'm attorney Rachel Cheek.
So Rachel, in several of our previous blogs with you and other attorneys, we've talked a lot about buddy statements.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important for us to delve a little bit more into those and kind of explain what they are, how they work, what difference they make in a case, etc.
Sure.
So can we start by you just basically explaining to people what a buddy statement is?
Absolutely. So as the name indicates, a buddy statement is a statement from, can be a friend, a buddy that you serve with, but it doesn't have to be. It can be a statement from a family member or even coworkers. I've even seen buddy statements from bosses.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, a buddy statement is the term that's used for any statement that is not, it's not the veteran statement,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not a statement like a medical statement from a doctor or medical evidence.
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially what that's categorized as.
Okay. What's considered lay evidence? I did another blog with another attorney and they talked a lot about lay evidence. So can you kind of explain that a little bit?
Sure. So lay evidence is, again, it's evidence that's not from an expert. So it's not, say, a nexus letter from a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
It's not medical records.
Mm-hmm.
It is evidence from someone speaking from their own experience.
Okay.
So a veteran statement could be considered lay evidence,
Mm-hmm.
speaking on your own personal experiences. Buddy statements are considered lay evidence. You don't have to be a medical expert to discuss observations that you notice about somebody.
Okay. How are these statements and other lay evidence submitted to the VA?
Just as you'd submit anything else. You can do it, fax it, mail it, take it to a regional office and submit it.
So nothing special about that. Okay. Are they important? Can they actually sway your VA claim? Because I know sometimes in other types of administrative law, judges are kind of like leery to take witness statements and things like that. Mm-hmm. This sort of sounds as if though it's a witness statement. So can they actually make a difference in the claim?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So this is true for any type of claim that you have going, whether it's for a service connection or for increased rating. But buddy statements, essentially what they're doing is they're providing evidence that is not already in the record. It might not be in your medical records. It might not be, probably isn't in your service records.
Mm-hmm.
And it allows you to put some extra information in the record that wouldn't be there otherwise. So a lot of times they can be crucial.
Right, to kind of give a firsthand experience, right, or witness statement. Are there mistakes that people that are writing the buddy statements make that could impact the claim?
I would say I maybe wouldn't categorize them as mistakes, but there are things that maybe could be done better that I sometimes see from statements that are submitted. So, for example, when I talk about how buddy statements can sway a claim, right? So let's do an example of you're seeking service connection for PTSD. You're saying, hey, look, this happened to me. I had this experience in service. Your service records don't mention it. A lot of times people will use PTSD as an example. I know a lot of times service members, you're not encouraged to go to the psychiatrist. You're not encouraged to get mental health treatment. You have to kind of deal with it. Now, after you get out of service, you obviously may have some issues, and you're saying, hey, it all stems from this that happened. If the only record that's available is your statement, the VA is required to consider that. However, it does make your claim a lot stronger if you can have someone who says, hey, I was there, I served with this veteran and I was there, I saw this accident or, was involved in this combat. They can speak to, their experience and supply evidence, again, that's not in the record.
Okay.
Similarly, or I would say what is kind of a problem that I sometimes see is people aren't specific enough.
Okay.
It's really important to be specific. You want to describe, so if you're describing service, you're doing a service connection, say you can get a statement from somebody who didn't serve with you. You can get a statement from a childhood friend. It's important to point out that you knew that the veteran before service.
Okay.
You knew them before service. Did they have any issues before service? Did you ever notice any kind of behavior? What was their personality like?
Okay.
Again, we're going this
almost
PTSD
kind of
example.
Like paint the picture.
Paint the picture, exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's really important for service connection for that statement to clarify that I knew this vet before this happened,
Okay.
and here's how they were. I knew them after it happened, here's what changed.
Okay.
And so that can be, again, for PTSD, it can be for any kind of service connection claim. It could be for injuries,
Yeah.
you know?
Like he was healthy, he used to run 5 miles a day,
Mhm.
we played football every weekend, he was fine.
Mm-hmm.
This injury happened, now he's now walking with a limp, he quit the team, he can no longer participate, he's always complaining that his knee's swollen, whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it doesn't always, I know a lot of people always, think PTSD because that so often happens,
Mhm.
but so that would be a good example. So I guess a lot of times clients talk to us about how the person was, and they'll say the person that came back from war or from service is a completely different
Mhm.
person.
Mm-hmm.
But so then they have to explain in greater detail what they mean by that, right?
Right. It's because you have to think the decision maker that's reading this statement isn't necessarily, I mean, they don't know what you mean when you just say, this person was different afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
You want to explain, well, here's how they were before, here's how they were after, and show exactly how different that may be.
He was the life of the party,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, always making jokes, great to be around, and now never goes anywhere.
Won't come out of his room, yells at people. Yeah.
Yeah, can't really deal with the public, things like that.
I would actually say, sorry, let me add
no,
one more
please
thing.
do.
As far as mistakes go, I would say that I see sometimes it's very important to just speak on what your own experience is. So if you're not a doctor, you can't really give medical evidence. You can't really say, well, I looked this condition up and it seems to match. That's not really going to give much weight. What could give weight? Again, you describe the symptoms, you describe your observations. You can't really provide, if you're not a medical expert, you can't really provide medical.
In my opinion, this seems to be, yes.
Exactly.
Right. So in a nutshell, can you tell us what a proper, effective buddy statement should contain?
Mm-hmm.
So if we just had to break it down.
Sure. So we'll go service connection, and we'll do one for increased rating. We'll discuss those two. They're similar, but a little different. So again, to touch on service connection, especially the statements are strongest if this person knew the veteran before service or before the incident. You have to describe, how they were before.
Okay.
Whatever condition you're going for. Again, he was healthy, he ran track, or he was happy, he was outgoing. And then you want to describe either if something that really helps a lot of times, and again, this isn't very common, but I know I've heard from people who were, friends kept up with the veteran during service, and they'll say, well, he used to write me letters, we used to talk on the phone all the time, all of a sudden that stopped. If you could describe changes that happened kind of immediately after, that's great.
Right.
If not, that's not available in every case. Sometimes people will have fallen out of touch for years. But again, you want to clarify, okay, here's how he is now, or here's how he was after service. It was different, and exactly how that lines up.
Okay.
So for statements such as increased rating, this is something where you're already service connected for it. So the before and after isn't as big of a concern. But what you want to do when you're saying increased rating, you're saying, hey, this condition's gotten worse.
Okay.
So for example, let's use migraines. That's something I see a lot that doesn't get the proper rating right away or worsens as time goes on. So for example, you could have a statement from your spouse. Okay. And so even if the spouse didn't know you before service, when you met, you had migraines, and that was
part
all
of
they
life.
knew, part of life, exactly. They can say, I married so and so 10 years ago. He would have headaches maybe once a month. He would take ibuprofen and he'd be fine.
Right.
About 5 years ago, these headaches started increasing. They started happening once a week. He would have to lay down, turn off the lights in the house. Now the migraines have increased to twice a week.
Right.
We can't have any sound on in the house. You just need to be very clear about the symptoms that you're seeing and the progression that's happened over time.
I think that's the key, the progression. You have to show and explain in layman's terms and in everyday examples how you have seen the progression, right? From basically your point of view, the first party point of view.
Exactly.
Okay, great. Can the VA refuse to consider a buddy statement?
Well, unless you have filed your appeal is being filed in the new appeal system, there's a couple different options you can choose where when you appeal a decision, you are asking the VA to review it based on the evidence that was in the record at the time of the earlier decision. Then you can't submit any additional evidence, including buddy statements. However, if you've got an appeal going and you're able to submit more evidence, you're within that time frame to submit additional evidence, or you're still in the legacy system and you submit a buddy statement, they are supposed to consider it.
They have to take it. Okay,
It's
great.
evidence.
This has been really helpful. Thank you, Rachel.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, please feel free to visit our website, call our office, and hopefully we'll see you again.